Hello there, I'm Tony Gale and you are listening to We Are West Ham podcast.
You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast, the first of 2021, and never mind national lockdowns. What a start. This is obviously going to be the best year ever because West Ham have done the improbable and beaten Everton 1-0 away at Goodison Park. Absolutely brilliant start to the year. Glad to see 2020 behind us on and off the pitch. West Ham went out of 2020 with a bit of a whimper, but we're 10th in the table now, just 3 points off of the Champions League spots in perhaps the closest Premier League table there has been for some time. We've had a week off, actually. We did a little pre-recorded show before Christmas to go out between Christmas and New Year, so me and the lads could sit back and eat ourselves silly on turkey stuffing and chocolates, and that is exactly what I did. I'll catch up with James Jones and Tom Edwards shortly to find out if they did the same. We've played Brighton, Southampton and Everton since our last show. It's been a crazy festive period, but what a start, as I said, to the year. James, how are you? First of all, how was your Christmas? It's lovely to see you again after a week off.
Yeah, Happy New Year, chaps. Christmas was okay. Made the best of a pretty rubbish situation. Obviously, Boris and his lads decided that people don't really deserve a Christmas after telling them 2 days earlier that it'd be inhumane to cancel it. So it meant that we had to cancel obviously all the family gathering that we had planned, and it was just me, my wife, and my 1-year-old son, which wasn't all bad. No, it was
So
good.
you subjected your wife to an inhumane Christmas in the end, despite what Boris had said just only days earlier.
Yeah, essentially, that's pretty much it. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, we made of it what we could, and we had a good day. We had plenty of food, plenty of chocolates. I had plenty of beer and whiskey. So it wasn't really any different to any other Christmas other than the fact that we didn't see anyone. But yeah, other than that, it was all good.
Happy days, mate. Happy days. And I'm glad to hear you feeling good going into 21. Thomas Edwards, how the devil are you? First of all, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all of that sort of stuff. Did you have a good break?
Firstly, guys, Happy New Year to you and Merry Christmas as always, chaps. It's been a nice week off, but I've missed chatting rubbish about West Ham with you two. So like Jonesy said, I mean, family is good to get back, home, see the old man, see how everyone's doing, and spend a bit of longer time at home with everyone. But other than that, mate, it felt different, and the only thing which felt a bit normal was watching the football and watching West Ham ruin Christmas, I guess, at one point. So yeah, nothing changed really, did it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they really did ruin Christmas, didn't they? I think it was the Southampton game, which I know on the face of it is a decent point, but I was sat there at the end and I said to my dad, "That's 4 games in a row that I haven't enjoyed a single minute of West Ham football, that I've just sat here 90 minutes." Yeah, and actually, sorry, no, I was saying that towards the Everton game just before we scored the winner. But yes, like the Brighton, Southampton and Everton, obviously Chelsea before that as well, just some pretty dross football. But we are unbeaten in all that after the Chelsea game, so I know it was a bit grim, Brighton in particular, but Southampton proving against Liverpool this week. What a good point that was to pick up at St Mary's. But Jonesy, we've got the Christmas stuff out of the way. On a football side of things, how have you found it since we last sat and spoke to each other, which was the week before Christmas? And yeah, we hadn't even played Brighton the last time we sat and had a chat.
Yeah, I think we've pleasantly surprised, really. The Brighton game annoyed me. No end, I think annoyed everyone. And that was off the back of the Chelsea game as well. Obviously, just the negative approach to that Chelsea game. And then you thought, okay, well, surely he won't do it home to Brighton. Surely not. And then he does. If anything, it was worse. And but then, to go to Southampton, given the form that Southampton are in this season, and get a point, was good. And then to go to Goodison Park and get a win. We don't win at Goodison Park very often. So, Yeah, it's been a good few weeks at West Ham, and the fact that we're 10th, 26 points, well within touch and distance of the chasing pack. It's very, very tight still, which is good that we're there or thereabouts at the moment, and we've got a couple of really favourable on paper fixtures coming up as well. So yeah, all happy days at the moment.
Yeah, I mean that winner against Everton from Soucek, it was, I mean, legend. Absolutely love him. Definitely a West Ham icon already, but it was needed, wasn't it, just to keep us within that chasing pack. Few grim results and performances before, but yeah, to just nick one like that, it's brilliant, isn't it? It just happened at with the Tottenham game as well, and then Fulham missing the penalty. We've had loads of last minute drama this season, and for once, and for the first time I can literally remember, we're on the right end of it. It keeps repeatedly happening. I'm absolutely loving it. Thomas, what are you saying on the pitch? West Ham 10th. If we hadn't have got anything at Everton, even if we'd have got a point, you'd have heard my usual Ebenezer Scrooge tones coming down the airwaves, down everyone's headphones. But it's given me a little bit of hope. Obviously, I'm desperate for us to push on and do some big business in January, because, like you said, like Jonesy said there, with the state of the season at the moment, there's every chance, if we invest wisely this month, that we could push on and grab that European place that we were promised all those years ago. So, what are you? How are you feeling going into the new year, football wise?
I think, like you said, the four performances we're talking about have been pretty workmanlike, but the last two, particularly the two away against Southampton and Everton, have been massive results. Southampton are a tough team, tough place to go in the midst of a real unfavourable Christmas schedule, like everyone has, in terms of fatigue for the players and the need to change team around. When you're going to Southampton at Christmas, probably not spending much time, the players, with their family, and then you're up straight in Everton, straight doing that, putting in that level of performance when you've played 3 games in 6 days. It was mightily impressive defensively. But I think what Jonesy said, that the selections for the Chelsea and Brighton games are a massive shame, because we've shown against Everton, when we go out and we have our attacking players, we have our players who can offer that bit more going forward, that we tend to look like we will hurt teams on the counter. And although Everton was a liquid football at times, we showed with the players on the pitch that they will create stuff, whether that be the last 10 minutes with Antonio on the park, or right at the start, I thought we looked like we could hurt him on the counter. So there's positives, but as long as he keeps using what we have available to us, i.e. Ben Rama and the players like that, and not sacrificing that for 0-0s and checking the draws, then I'll be a happy man.
I can tell that's been rattling you the entire festive period, mate. Yeah, I must. We'll get onto it when we detail the detailed reviews of the games, particularly the Everton one. The Ben Rama situation, Tom, I will ask you about that, no doubt. I don't think he sort of set the world on fire when he started, but definitely worth a shot. Before we move on to part 2, we'll have a brief review of the Brighton and Southampton games. They seem like a million years ago already, but we'll look into the Everton game in a little bit more detail. Great start to the new year for West Ham. What else have we got coming up on the show? As usual, like I say, we'll review the Everton game there. No Betway charity bets this week, because it's Stockport next week in the FA Cup, and the deal we've got with Betway only covers the Premier League games, of course. And we had no wins over Christmas. 3 cramped, packed games since we last recorded the pod, and no wins for me and the boys. With the opposition view, we'll speak to Russ Johnson from the Scarf Bagara War podcast. Believe it or not, that is the name of a Stockport County podcast ahead of the FA Cup game next Monday. So we'll speak to him. Tom Edwards takes the reins as quizmaster in Name That Game, and we'll have Isabel Barker, sports journalist and a WSL expert from the Sun newspaper, friend of the show, joining us to discuss the West Ham women at the very end of the show. And a new manager, just moments after we spoke to Sandra Brobby a couple of weeks ago, it was now. As soon as we'd wrapped up the podcast, finished the recording, West Ham announced that they had appointed a new manager. So we'll have a chat about the West Ham women, wrap up with a brief Fantasy Premier League update, and the highlight of the show so far, because obviously we've got some good stuff coming up, is the New Year giveaway that we are doing. We promise you one over the festive period. We've managed to get it sorted for this new year, and this one is going to be exclusively for listeners to the podcast, so it won't be going on Twitter, nothing on social media. It's just for you guys at home to listen to. Anyone who downloads, listens to the podcast will be able to win a brand new replica West Ham shirt. So this season's shirt, home, away, or third kit, whatever you fancy. The winner gets to pick between those three, and all you have to do this time is, now we tried this before, Jonesy, but we've decided to go with it. All you have to do is leave us a 5-star review on iTunes with some whatever words you fancy. It can be funny words, taking the mickey out of me, James, or Tom. Just say some nice things, or just put a thumbs up if you want, but it has to be 5 stars, and we need you to take a screen grab of you writing that review, and and email it to us at wearewesthampod@gmail.com. And as soon as that email comes through and the review flashes up on iTunes or whatever platform you decide to review us on, that could be YouTube as well, then email it to us and we'll pick a winner from all the eligible submissions. So that's a free West Ham shirt for this season, home, away, or third giveaway. Just take a screen grab of you leaving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to, preferably iTunes or YouTube. Email that through to wearewesthampod@gmail.com, and then we'll pick a winner from the eligible submission. So do that by the time the podcast goes out next week. Entries shut on Sunday night, so get it to us by midnight on Sunday, and you could be in with a shot to win yourself a free West Ham shirt from this season. Jonesy, bit of housekeeping as usual. Where should people follow us on Twitter?
Yeah, everyone can find us on Twitter at @weare_West Ham. That's
And
at @weare_West Ham.
They can watch us on YouTube. Where do they go for that?
Go to youtube.com, universal URL that.com, not .co.uk. Search We Are West Ham Podcast, and you can find us there. I'll be doing a little bit of work over the coming weeks to jazz that up a little bit as we go. So yeah, well worth subscribing, because we've got some exclusive interviews with former players. Some of the ones that we've already published are going to go out as separate episodes. So a little bit more bite-sized viewing for you to look back on some cracking ones last year.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a link to our YouTube channel in the description to this podcast as well. So I think that is it. If everyone's got their head around the housekeeping, remember you can win a West Ham shirt. Just follow those instructions there. Remember, it's not going out on any social media, so the only instructions you'll get are the audio ones from me, because we want to reward people, solely people who listen to the podcast, not just people who see the competition on Twitter, as we've done earlier in the season. So it's just for you guys who listen at home. But stay with us, because the first proper We Are West Ham podcast of 2021 is going to kick off properly next, because we've got the Brighton, Southampton and Everton reaction. So you are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast, the first of 2021, and it's already destined to be a far better year for West Ham United. We've started the season unbeaten already, perfect 100% record after smashing Everton 1-0, thanks to prolific goal scorer Tomas Soucek's perfectly timed late dash into the box as Aaron Cresswell's shot come cross, deflected its way onto Soucek's foot and into the back of the net. VAR, see you later, not interested, not miles onside, in fact. And then some celebration and talking about how pleased he is to be able to score goals over the Christmas period, because usually he's eating potato salad in the Czech Republic. Everyone fell in love with Soucek after that game. But lads, we have to go back a little bit further, and we'll just do it briefly because it feels like old news now. Tom, I'll go to you first. Because since we last spoke, or since we last did a podcast in our usual format, we've played Brighton, Southampton and Everton. Brighton 2-2, quite simply, dross. The halftime subs had an impact, but it's not good enough to be waiting until halftime to be making substitutions to change the game. In my opinion, you were furious, weren't you, with the lineup? And I think you echoed the sentiments of lots of West Ham fans. Just briefly, sum up your thoughts on the Brighton game for us.
Yeah, exactly what you said. It was just a joss game of football. We gave a team who liked to control possession. We gave them an extra midfielder in the middle. We'd gone from playing four at the back away at Chelsea and sort of tried to compete to win possession in the middle of the park against Brighton, losing a midfielder and basically sacrificing possession against a team who need that to get established in games. And we let them get in the game. We didn't really apply any pressure. The selection of not playing Ben Rama, not playing any of the real creative players and going for a 2 up front just left us bare and incredibly boring to watch, I thought, and a real shame considering it was one of those opportunities we had to get back with that packet and gain a bit of ground when we just lost it to Palace and Chelsea. So that was my main frustration, but thankfully what's happened in the past weeks, I'm not here moaning too much, but it was just a bit of a nightmare Christmas after that day. Yeah,
absolutely, man. I think you're right then. And I was the same before that win at Everton, which I don't think any of us saw coming. Before that, if you'd have just swapped those results round and said we beat Brighton and got a draw at Everton, you'd have been absolutely and drew at Southampton, you'd have been delighted, wouldn't you? So all in all, that 5-point haul from those 3 games, not too disappointing at all. James, and Ken, unless you've got anything particularly profound to add on the Brighton game, we'll throw to you for the Southampton one. Decent point against a decent team. I think we could have won the game still, though. What was your take?
Just quickly on the Brighton one. The thing that really got me about that was David Moyes coming out after and going, "Yeah, in hindsight, I probably got the approach wrong a little bit," and that really rubbed me up the wrong way a little bit because I thought, "Hang on, like,
what honestly,
everyone in the world saw straight away that's what are you doing?" Right, but the Premier League manager didn't, and I thought, "Oh no, like, what's going on here?" But in fairness, he has turned it around, and in the 2 games afterwards. So, but yeah, it's frustrating. Really, I thought that was two points dropped. Really,
James, can you imagine being in Tom's front room when he saw? I mean, we saw a bit of on the group chat when he saw Mark Noble playing number 10 instead of Said Ben Rama.
Yeah, like TV out the window sort of stuff. But yeah, I think that the performance at Southampton was better. The approach was better, and Southampton, as we know, are a good side this season under Hasenhüttl. You know, they've beaten Liverpool this week as well. So I mean, they're a good side. They're up there with us. You know, pushing. So to go there and keep a clean sheet and nick a point. No, it wasn't really nick a point. I think it was probably a fair result in the end. But we could have won it. We had our chances. Obviously, they had a goal shots off for offside right at the beginning. But Craig Dawson at the back, absolute rock. Man of the match on his debut, dream debut. What more could you want? I mean, we've been spending the last 3 or 4 months going, what was the point? I think on our last pod before Christmas, I said we might as well just send him back to Watford because he just wasn't getting a game. I don't think he'd ever warmed up. And then there he is. He's rocked up at St Mary's and had the game of his life.
Absolutely integral now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's huge, absolutely huge. So who needs this Diop and Balbuena when you got Craig Dawson? But yeah, fair play to him. Stepped in nicely and put in a man of match performance and helped us to a clean sheet at St Mary's.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you calling James now for Issa Diop to be carted out in January?
No, we need backup.
Just not Craig Dawson.
No, Craig Dawson's first name on the team sheet now.
He did.
Absolutely. I don't know why we don't play him up front, to be honest, instead of Hella. But Tom, well, both of you really. I'll throw it to Tom first. But is it just me, or do you feel more comfortable playing away from home these days? It seems really strange, but I've got far more confidence in our ability to look good, and I think it's because it suits that style, doesn't it? We are more comfortable if the opposition have got the ball. But I just feel like any game at the London Stadium, home advantage hasn't really been a thing since we've played there anyway. But even like now there's no fans, I don't think that's part of it. I just don't feel, more because of our playing style, I feel more confident and like looking forward to away games rather than home. Is that something that's shared by you, Tom, or do you think I'm insane?
No, absolutely. I completely agree. I think we just suit it. The players we have, the system we have, sitting deeper, inviting pressure on, and when you're the away side, that it's not on you to press and try and get that winner. A draws tend to be the theory is, isn't it? Win at home and draw away. So it's always on the home side to press forward that initiative. And like you've seen with Antonio off the bench in the last few weeks, when we have that edge and when we have that spite off the bench as well, and we take games deep, we've got a big chance of nicking points. And I think it's suiting Moyes and that back sort of 6, you make it with Soucek and Rice, who tend to just screen in front away from home. And we've got some real talented players who tend to make things happen when they do go forward. So it's working, but we need to find a way, because we're not going to win every away game. So we need to find a formula to turn that quality into points at home as well, and get a few more creative players on the pitch when we do have those games at home against the Burnleys and West Broms and all the likes of that coming forward. So we need both, but playing away right now does suit this squad.
Yeah, Jonesy, I feel what Tom's mentioned there about the home and needed to find a way. I do think that will change with Mikel Antonio. The more game time he gets, the better we'll be at home, because we'll still have someone actually daring to make the centre halves jump for headers and go in for tackles. A novel idea for a striker, I know. But what's is it? You know, are you concerned by the home form, or do you just think, no, I think we've got a good formula at the moment. Stop worrying, you're miserable, so and so.
No, I don't think there's anything to worry about. I mean, but we've only lost two games at home this season. That was Newcastle and Man United, unless I'm forgetting one. Yeah, okay. There's been a couple of disappointing,
but it's not just and draws as well. You know,
we had to grind it out against Fulham, last minute winner.
Palace,
huffed and puffed against Palace, against 10 men.
Brighton,
I had to rely on
left a leg against Fulham,
left a leg against Villa. We sort of hang on against Villa, didn't we?
Yeah.
Hang on. So yeah, it's not been, you know, plain sailing, but then we did batter Wolves 4-0, and that was when, you know, as you just mentioned, Antonio was at his very best. So I think Antonio is so important to the way we play at home, or a player like Antonio. And, you know, I don't think there's anything to worry about at all. It just, you know, it's not been home form since we moved to that stadium. Hasn't been great, full stop, has it? With or without fans. It's probably been better without the fans.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I take your point that we've looked better away from home, definitely.
I don't like all this anymore, James. Remember when we used to just go head to head at each other all the time? Now you just placate me and say, we've got nothing to worry about, mate. Just calm down. It's almost like you're fed up of me finding a negative out of a sea of positives.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes I just fancy a quiet life. You know?
Sometimes you're boring,
just want
mate.
a quiet life.
Thick of
it. Yeah, you can say it, James. I've got a thick skin. It's fine if you don't find me entertaining or funny anymore. That's just, don't worry about it. Tom, Everton, we won at Goodison Park, and it's almost like that old West Ham cliche where we say, roll our eyes and go, oh, we never get anything at Goodison. Can we finally shed that? Because what a result that is. Past few seasons, I don't know, in more recent memory, it doesn't seem as grim as it used to feel when I was a youngster. And I mean, what a win that was. I've just simply put on the notes before this evening, we are massive.
It was a massive, massive win. When that big bloke sticks it in, that the reactions for a guy, what is he, 6'15" or something, and just sticking his leg out last second off a massive deflection. What a finish that is, and like we just spoke about away, we were just very hard to beat. It wasn't special. I know you think I'm his biggest fanboy, and I probably am. But Benrahma wasn't special, but he changed the way we play a bit more quality going forward. It wasn't drastic, but we'll see.
Than when Noble plays, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he can actually run, which probably helped him in it. But yeah, it was just one of those, just with you so unexpected. If I thought any team was going to nick it, even though we looked the more likely side, you just had a feeling that Calvert-Lewin was going to do it again. But yeah, what a win, and fingers crossed that gives us some momentum to go into these games now with a bit of ambition, believe we can do it, and just thank God Antonio's back as well, because I can't watch much more of Haller's Dross recently.
No, I think, you know, again, I'm not quite got the Philippe Anderson feels for Sebastian Haller yet, but it is close. I just honestly think people just want him to be better than he is showing, because he costs a lot of money. People, like, they hear how much he is right at the beginning, and then there's just a permanent block for some fans then that will not let them have anything bad to say about Haller. It's always someone else's fault or the system's fault or whatever, but it's just not how I see it at the moment, and really irritated. I was supersonic nervous both times Antonio's come on in the last couple of games. I'm like, no, don't sprint, you hurt yourself. No, mind your hamstrings. Careful, be careful. But I just think having him back is huge, and it is massively important, if you ask me, to bring in someone this January. Not in the interest of being smug. And when we were having the conversation, Tom, about Ben Rama or King, I wanted King then. It sounds like David Moyes did as well. If I had to pick, I know Ben Rama's a talented player, but I just think the need for the squad was so much more. And it's been highlighted massively, hasn't it, with Haller? I think we've got to do the sensible thing and realise it's not working out, and just not let that narrative dominate the season, and have remember when we had Sebastian Haller and he was really expensive and it didn't work out. Have that as the side note on a story where West Ham went out in January and built on an excellent start to the season, and we finished 6th or 5th, because we've said with the points that can happen. The Chelsea game when we lost 3-0 wasn't a 3-0 defeat. We are there. We can give all of those teams that are around us a decent game of football this season. We can make it hard for them to score, and if we got some firepower to replay, we could have a really, really, really good season this year. James, how are you feeling about Haller? We'll move on to Philippe Anderson in a minute, because rumours at the club might be pulling him back in. I thought I'd done without that feeling of nervous, angry anxiety in me whenever anyone mentions the name Philippe Anderson for a whole season. Looks like he might be coming back. But what are you saying, sort of Everton, the general attacking, everything I've just said? Just argue with me, please.
I think the general performance was great. It was a weird. I found it weird to watch in that there was so much space in midfield for both sides, because both sides pretty much wanted to attack. And I just found every time either side's creative players or midfielders had the ball, they were running at defenders. It was a very, very open game in midfield, which is quite rare to see. Both sides have so much space in midfield, I found. But we had the more creative players on the pitch at that time, at any time, I thought. And for that reason, I thought we were probably the most likely to go on and win. Probably via a better, less scrappy goal than the one we scored, but they all count, don't they? So I think all in all, we probably deserved the 3 points. But on your point about Sebastian Haller, I think given his price tag, I think that opens him up for more criticism. Yeah, some people might be blinkered by the fact he's 40 million quid. He's going to come good. He's going to come good, but it opens him up for so much more criticism. And when you don't work as hard as he should do as a lone striker, I'm with you again, mate. I can't argue with you.
Oh God!
We've got to do something in January, because I make David Moyes right. At first, I was like, he's got to try and fit. He's got to find a system that works. He's got to find a system that works for Haller. And now I'm like, no. We found a system that works for us as a squad. If Haller doesn't fit that, then unfortunately he's got to go. And I wanted him more than anyone for him to work out at West Ham. We finally spent 40 million quid on the striker. I think we named our podcast after we signed it was finally we've got a 40 million pound striker. And so we all wanted it to work out for him. And okay, he's done well in parts. He's shown he can finish, but in the current system, it just doesn't work for him. So we've got to address that this January. We can't go on for the rest of the season with just him and Antonio. But I make Moyes right. He's going to stick to his system, and that's it. If you don't fit the system, then
as it should be as well. As it should be.
Absolutely, yeah. Whereas before, everyone was like, "Oh, we've got to find a system for Haller. We've got to find a system for Haller because he can play. He's a good player." And don't get me wrong, Haller is a very, very good striker, but not in our system. He can finish. We've seen the goals he scored for us. He scored 3 overhead kicks for us. He can finish, but it doesn't suit our style of play, and unfortunately that's it.
The thing I have on him is I got in a bit of a twitch spat on this matter, but we put in the fourth most crosses in the league, and we've had both our fullbacks are in the top 15 of it or so. And how often do you see Haller in amongst it and jostling and making something happen in the box, when so often all our goals come from there? I think we scored the most goals from crosses in open play. And you want your striker playing between the width of the goalposts, particularly in his side where you're going to get the ball in the box and a lot and early. And very rarely he's making that happen. I think it might be a confidence thing with him now that he's almost petrified of those chances falling to him because of the pressure he's under. So because I think he's good. Like Jonesy said, he's got it in him. We've seen that first season. He scored a lot from crosses. He scored bicycle kicks. He can score headers. It's just a shame, and it's one of those take our losses now because it's just not going to work, I think, and I think we can all see that, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, me and James write for the Blowing Bubbles fanzine. It's worth, by the way, if you're listening, you don't already, it's worth checking it out. Subscription's really reasonable. You get hard copy or a digital one, whatever you fancy. And there's a whole smorgasbord of views and opinions from West Ham fans up and down the country and all around the world. That's worth a read. James Jones's particularly emotional piece on Winston Reid this week. Mine on just reminding everyone that it's okay to feel wronged if West Ham don't do anything this season after the move from Upton Park. But within that, I saw there's a piece this week on Haller's body language and saying that, you know, it seems like he's really up for it. There's little things that I've noticed. And I thought, absolutely not. This completely other way. The poor bloke, Tom, like you said, he looks like he's scared to be out there now. There's little things like basic Sunday league stuff, like little passing exercises you do, like one-touch passes to people. Even them, they're going, you know, a couple of yards behind the player and the player's having to check their run every time. He's got no confidence in his own ability to do anything now, is he? And I do really feel for him. I think certainly, you know, if he wasn't our only striker, which isn't his fault, poor recruitment, poor preparation for a season, only going in with one injury prone striker and one other. I think definitely time for him to have a period on the sidelines, or, you know, whether getting rid of him or not is a good idea. I think, to be honest, wage wise, if we can, I'd much sooner have Antonio and King and still only have two strikers, but we'll see what happens on that one. Tom, just quickly, it looks like Marko Arnautovic, appears today, conflicting stories, but West Ham have rebutted the chance to re-sign Arnautovic over fears he might be too expensive. 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in this segment, so keep it brief. Are you disappointed to hear that or pleased?
Disappointed from a club standpoint. I think he'd be all that dirty laundry, so to speak, that's in the press, and the relationship between him and the club for what he did and sort of looking to leave. We can't blame him for, because he was getting offered ludicrous money and he's got family to look after. So I don't particularly hate him myself, but he knows a lot of the group there. We've got such a group of players who are for the greater good. There's no I in this team. It sounds very cliche, but they are very much 11. And any ego could come in and disrupt that. And I think we might be better off without him, even if he is the archetypal Moyes striker. I think, for me, the only way this deal sort of works is you get him on a 6-month loan deal to the end of the season, paying limited wages or less wages than we would if we bought him, and see how it goes, and then discuss it in the summer. But for me, I'd stay away from it, but I'm not totally against it, because we know the type of player he can be, particularly under Moyes, and they have a good relationship.
Fair enough. James, Philippe Anderson looks like he could be recalled from his loan at Porto early, looking at calling him back this month, and potentially, and trying to find a club for him elsewhere. I think he's played 6 times for Porto. He's never started in the league, never managed more than 65 minutes in any of their games, 218 minutes of football he's played. And you've got 1 minute to tell me what you think about Philippe Anderson before I get too angry.
Well, I mean, I don't think it really matters, because it just sounds like he's being recalled, and then with the view of sending him straight back out again to whoever will take him. I don't think we'll see him in a West Ham shirt again this season.
Or ever, fingers crossed.
Or ever. So, I mean, I think it's right, the club bringing him back and then sending him to a club that's going to play him more, because obviously if he plays more, his value stays higher. So we can sell him on in the summer. But it is what it is.
Absolutely. 250 grand's worth of a week worth of wages, by the way, Philippe Anderson and Sebastian Haller. But that is that for part 2. Stay with us, because it's the Betway charity bets next. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. Mixed opinions there on Marko Arnautovic, Felipe Anderson, the games at Everton. I'm trying to get some mixed opinions out of James so we can argue with each other like we used to do in the last days, but he's just too mellow these days, not having it at all from me. Lads, no wins again over the Christmas period in the Betway charity bets. 3 games. I thought surely we're having 2 weeks off, 3 West Ham matches. By the time we come back, surely we're going to have had a winner amongst the 3 of us. That's 9 chances in total we had there. And nothing. I wasn't particularly close with the Everton game, basically because I backed Everton to win and Calvert-Lewin to score. Jonesy, can you tell us, were any of you too close, really? I don't think I was nowhere near.
I was pretty
the
close.
last 3 games.
Yeah, I was close. I had under 2.5 goals, West Ham to win, Ben Rama to score anytime. So on the counter-attack in the last 5, I thought I might be able to nip it, but sadly no winner. But it was close.
I think we're going to have a pact between the 3 of us that one of us always backs Soucek to score and West Ham to win as part of the bet each week, because he's always pretty good for a goal, isn't he? I think that was the 5th of his season. Jonesy, anything for you on the charity bets?
No, the only one that came in for me, I had West Ham to win 2-1, Antonio to score, and over 9.5 corners, and for the Everton game, and we got there was 10 corners in the game. And when Antonio came off the bench, he looked lively, didn't he? And I thought, I think he almost scored at the end. He had that run into the box, didn't he? And I thought, if he scores now and then Everton go down the other end and quickly nick it, then I've won my bet. It was wishful thinking, but you start dreaming in those little moments, didn't you? But yeah, I only got the corners in. But I think after you had your big win, Will, I've been going for right. Okay, I'm going to go for a big one. I feel like I should really go big rather than play it a little bit safer. I've gone for a couple of correct scores over the last few weeks. Gone for correct goal scorers and stuff like that. So, but I'm beginning to think I might have to just reel it in a little bit just so I can get 1 or 2 more wins under my belt.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah. So for any new listeners or any of you listening who've forgotten what the Betway charity bet section is about, me and the lads get £50 each, kindly given to us from the guys at Betway each week to put on a charity bet of our choice. So we don't actually get the money, of course, but we tell Chad what our bets are for each West Ham Premier League game in the season, a 3 selection bet. And any winnings from that £50 bets goes towards the charities, the West Ham linked charities that me and the lads are playing for this season. I am playing for the Bobby Moore Cancer Fund, a close experience of bowel cancer within my family. So it's a cause close to my heart, and of course, close to plenty of West Ham fans. So just while I'm on, a reminder for the new year, if there are any of you are out there, bowel cancer is a huge killer of men, particularly in their 50s, kills men really young, and obviously as well, of course, it is very, very treatable. So if you're sort of a bit worried about something downstairs, it's something that you might not normally talk about, but you're a bit concerned, do phone up the doctors. Like I say, so someone close to me, it was actually my dad who had it, but caught it early and was lucky enough to get the treatment that he needed. Bit of a grim time for all of us, but it was catching it early that was the key, and he managed to get through it. So just a reminder, if there's any of you out there or you're worried about yourself or someone near to you, do just go and get checked out. If you're worried, go and speak to the doctor, because these things are treatable if you get them early. So yeah, I'm playing for the Bobby Moore Fund this season. James, tell me, how much money have I won so far? And because Betway have already agreed to double any winnings, what is my total donation as it stands to the Bobby Moore Fund?
So, Will, you've won two bets so far, with 1,310 in the bank, which after Betway match at the end of the season, that's 2,620 quid for the Bobby Moore Fund for you, mate. So, yeah, very well done on that.
Yeah, that's brilliant stuff. That Angelo Ogbonna goal, both teams to score and West Ham to win against Aston Villa, the one that bagged me the majority of that money. Jonesy, you are playing for the DT38 Foundation. As I said there, we only do bets for the Premier League games, so there's no bets coming up for the Stockport game in the FA Cup, and we'll do the bets for the league game in next week's podcast. So Jonesy, just remind people who you're playing for. That I know that you're keen to raise awareness as well as raise money this season. So let everyone know what you're raising it for and how much you've got in the bag so far.
Yeah, I'm representing DT38, Dylan Tombides Foundation. Obviously, every West Ham fan will know who Dylan Tombides is. Obviously, he sadly passed away through testicular cancer a few years ago, and testicular cancer is a very, very common form of cancer amongst men. It's just whatever you do, just at least once a month. I think DT38 do a thing on the first of every month. Just check yourself, have a little check in the shower, and if you do feel a lump, get yourself checked out as soon as possible. And one of their big messages, DT38, and it's absolutely true, is that always demand an ultrasound when you get checked out, because that was essentially what happened with Dylan, is that he didn't have an ultrasound the first time he went when he got checked. It was kind of just fobbed off as not so much to worry about, and then he ended up coming back in a drugs test that there was something wrong, and then he had an ultrasound then 3 weeks later, and that 3 weeks essentially is what stopped him from getting surviving it. So get yourself checked out. If you need to go, if you find something, go and get yourself checked out. Have an ultrasound. It is, again, very, very treatable form of cancer if you catch it early. So timing is very, very important. And I've won one bet for DT38, £147.50. I actually emailed Tracy, Dylan's mum, after I won that bet off the back of losing about 6, and she said, "Whatever you do, don't take up gambling for a living." And given my record since that win, I definitely won't be. But yeah, I'm going to start playing it safe just to build that pot up, because it's just once Betway have matched it for just short of 300 quid. So I want to get more than that for DT38.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And Tom, the last but by no means, certainly not least by any stretch of the imagination, let everyone at home know who you're playing for and how much. James can let you know how much you got in the bank.
Yeah, so I'm lucky enough to be raising some money for Isla's Fight, which is basically a campaign to give money to Isla Caton and their family to help a young child who's part of the West Ham family who was diagnosed with a rare cancer called neuroblastoma. And it's not only to raise money for her, it's to raise money for that disease and for other children in the similar predicament and families who have to fight tooth and nail to get over this horrible condition. So if you want to go over and check out her Twitter, it's Isla's Fight, and there's a lot of information there that you can find on the disease itself and ways to give money back and help a family out who are doing wonderful things, not just for that, but for plenty of other families around the country in spreading the fight and spreading news and telling people what to look out for and how to move forward, because yeah, it's horrible. And like I say, we've all been affected by these things indirectly or directly, and any money we can get there at the end of the season will be pretty special. But like Jonesy, it might be time to start getting the pot up and winning some safer bets at the minute.
Absolutely. James, how much has Tom got? Just quickly before we move on.
Tom's also won one with 260 quid in the bank. So that's what, 520 after Betway match at the end of the season. So yeah, nice little lump there for Isla's Fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So into the thousands there that we've raised. We will be trying to do a few more things towards the end of the season, and as this year goes on, away from the podcast, we've raised a few more money to those causes. If you've got any spare that you can chip in to any one of those three, then by all means do. Just note as well that you can, in a normal week when we have the Betway charity bet selections, you can actually back our bets on the Betway website and app, just under pre-built bets, and you'll find our names and the We Are West Ham podcast and those selections. You can back yourself if you like the sound of them. But lads, like we said there, no bets this week because we're in FA Cup action away to Stockport County, infamous of course for Ian Dowie's own goal in, I believe, 1996. But we'll have the opposition view with Russ Johnson next. So it's time to look ahead to West Ham's next game. Loads of fixtures crammed in together in the Premier League, and then a few days off for the lads before we travel up north to Stockport County in the third round of the FA Cup next Monday night, the 11th, 8 o'clock kickoff at Edgeley Park. A historic fixture, of course. Well, certainly not for Ian Dowie, not one that he likes to look back on after his famous own goal in 1996. But I'm delighted to say that joining us as ever to look ahead for our opposition view is Russ Johnson, founder and host of the Scarf Bagara War podcast, Stockport County podcast, talking all things Stockport week in, week out. Russ, first of all, before we get onto the game, I've got to ask you, the Scarf Bagara War is the name of your podcast. We went nice and simple with ours. We are West Ham. Absolutely no questions about what we're about. Talk us through the name of your pod, first of all, for anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, well, we started off as County Podcast, which again is more towards kind of what yours is really, but we decided to go a different direction. So the Scarf Bagara War is a mixture of probably our most famous manager, or one of, Danny Bagara. So he was the first foreign manager to lead out an English team at Wembley.
Oh, right. What year? What era are we talking there?
We're talking late 80s, early 90s.
Right. Okay.
So the manager after him was Dave Jones, who was the manager when we beat your lot and Ian Dowie scored the goal. So it's not too long ago. Well, for us, it's not. So it's Danny Bagara. So it's got his name in it, and we have a very popular song on the terraces called "The Scarf My Father Wore."
Right.
So it's just a mixture of the two.
Oh,
we may even change it in the future. I don't know yet, but yeah, that's what it is.
I don't worry, mate. We just find it. I say our imagination didn't stretch very far when we thought of "We Are West Ham." So we'll just worth asking. So Stockport fourth in the National League at the moment, going fairly well in the league. Have you sort of found the league campaign? Most people will know and think, oh, Stockport, not a league club anymore. Surprising to some, sort of used to follow Southend United quite keenly. I remember a few fixtures at Roots Hall going along and playing against Stockport. What are you sort of obviously playing pretty well at the moment in the league this season? For those of the listeners who might not necessarily know what you're up to this season, how's it going?
So yeah, it's going okay in the league at the moment. We're fourth in the league with games in hand on the teams around us, quite a fair way behind Torquay, who are top. It's probably worth noting to your listeners that we were in the National North League, so Tier 6 until recently, and got promoted as champions, went down to regional football. But since then, we've actually been taken over by a new chairman who's a multi-millionaire. So we're actually favourites to win the division we're in. We started off as favourites before the season started. So to some county fans at the moment, we're kind of underachieving, being fourth, believe it or not. But yeah, good start to the season. Had a few disappointing losses, but yeah, overall, considering we've got a load of new players in, pretty much a new squad, we're doing pretty well.
That's good stuff. I say it's funny. I mentioned Southend there, and you mentioned going all the way down to regional football. They absolutely terrible in League One last year, and started this season in League Two in equally a tragic fashion. They have picked up, to be fair, in recent games, but it can be done, can't it? Where you just drop down. And because I'm thinking, 12,000 people, 12,000 seat a stadium, they wouldn't get that every week, but still 7,000 or 8,000 usually, like in the top attendances, certainly in League Two. And you think if it can happen to them, I think they might just have enough, hopefully, this year to stop going down to non-league, which haven't been in for years. But it can happen. Was yours sort of could you see it coming, or was it a bit out of the blue, or was there more to it, or?
Oh, there's a lot more to it. We actually did a series of podcasts just on that called the Dark Days series, and we're up to episode 5 at the moment, and there's probably another 4 to go. So it was a comedy of errors, basically, a series of events that just contributed to the whole downfall into regional football. It was a sad time. Started in probably 2009, and we're only just coming out of it now since this takeover, which was last January. So a full decade, really.
On the way up, which is good to hear. Russ, I've got to ask you the 1996 fourth round of the League Cup. Ian Dowie puts through his own net away at Stockport. He is synonymous with that. If you mention the name Ian Dowie to West Ham fans, that is the first thing that everyone mentions. And even if you're not talking about Dowie, it's one of the most famous games, those cult games that football fans often think back to. Is it the same for Stockport? Is that one of sort of the famous games in your history, or is it just that was one of many? We don't really think back to that often.
No, it's one of the famous games in history, and every year on the birthday of that event, it gets replayed, and Twitter, comes out on Twitter. It's a real event. I mean, that whole year for us, that whole cup run was a massive thing for us. It was like the height of where we were in the football league.
Got to the semis, didn't you?
Yeah, we got to the semis and got beat by Middlesbrough. We beat them away, and obviously that was when Ravanelli, Emerson, Juninho were playing. We beat them away 1-0, but lost at home 2-0, and eventually went out. But but that own goal, I mean, I was there for that. I was a 15-year-old. Couldn't believe what he'd done. Horrible night. It's every county fan knows about that, and I'm quite pleased that you said that it's synonymous with West Ham fans as well, because kind of a bit of relationship we've got going there, I guess. And then when this tie came out for this third round, that's what everybody pointed to. National Ian Dowie Day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all of my group chats have been popping off with people having bets on who's going to score a thunderous own goal header from just inside West Ham's box. I think my money is on Sebastian Haller, the way he's playing at the moment. But look, looking forward to the actual game. Obviously, on paper, West Ham have got a horrible record of slipping up against lower league teams in the cup. It's become a bit of a habit. I was almost pleased earlier on in the season when we went out of the League Cup away to Everton, because it was nice to just go out of a cup competition not in embarrassing fashion. Losing away at Goodison Park is no shame in that at all. So I was almost delighted that we did that rather than, Oxford United, West Brom, Wimbledon are all teams that we've gone out to in seasons past. But there will no doubt be nerves among West Ham fans. Lots of them, as happens with everyone who follows a team outside the top six in the Premier League. Everyone thinks, we should be going for the cups, blah, blah, blah. My stance is slightly different, where I just say, I just want to go out to a team who is going to finish above us in the Premier League. If we do that, not a problem at all, but just beat the teams, that you should beat, that we certainly have the quality to. What's your thoughts sort of and the feeling among the fans looking ahead to the game?
Cautious optimism, I would say.
Oh dear.
About the game because it's at our place. I mean, obviously the situation is massively different to the last time we played you. We were top of League One, as it were, when we played you last time in the cup, and you were struggling in the Premier League. This time we're 4 divisions lower than you. I think you're playing okay. I would say you 1-7 drawn 5 lost 5. I think so. Yeah. If I get the feeling, if you turn up on the day, you will your quality will probably shine through, and you'll probably beat us. Where you might come unstuck is because we're not a bad team and we've got some good players in there. We've got a couple of key players. If you don't turn up and we're up for it, you could find yourself in a sticky situation.
Well, I mean, if you look back at our historic record, our clubs have only played each other 7 times since the first one, which was 26th of April, 1920. You've actually won 7 of those meetings. To be fair, the first 4 came by the 30th of September, 1922. You've beaten us 4 times in 2 years since then. But the thing is, what on the pitch, what should West Ham be looking out for? Because we're obviously going to put a weakened side out, a reserve team. We've still got some players in there who can do some damage. Robert Snodgrass will be getting some game time. Mark Noble will no doubt play. Both players who've got Premier League minutes this season. As far as the actual way the game is going to play out, who should West Ham be what should we be looking out for?
So we've got a few key players you need to look out for. So probably the biggest one, and he carries the biggest name as well, it's John Rooney. which is
Wayne
Wayne's
Rooney's
younger
brother.
Wayne's young. Yeah,
Scored an absolute screamer earlier this season, didn't he? Inside his own half, just like his brother.
Yeah, well, that was against Rochdale away, the sort of start of the beginning of the cup run. He scored an absolute. He scored a top bin on Saturday as well. In the league, we just call him Wayne's brother because he's not known as John Rooney anywhere. You know, all the commentators say, "Oh, it's Wayne's brother." So he's one to look out for. He normally takes up the number 10 role,
right?
But does come deeper. Just like his brother, really starts to come deep for the ball. We've got a big lad up front called Richie Bennett. He's one to look out for as well. He's pretty strong. And then playing off him is Alex Reid.
So what sort of style were we expecting then? So were you quite direct, or obviously you'd hope that, or we would hope that West Ham would have most of the ball. But what sort of, like, do you try and play football, get it on the floor, or is it quite direct?
It's been a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, there was a lot of complaints not so long ago, a few games ago, where fans were saying we're trying to be too direct. You know, the big man up top trying to get it to him, Bennett to flick it on to Reid, and that's an old style of football. But, we've also switched it up and played. I wouldn't say tiki-taka because it's a term that I hate, but it's almost like trying to work the ball into the box and trying to get wide. We do play. Our fullbacks will always try to get high, whether we're playing 4 or 5 at the back. So Kitching on the left and Southam Hales or Minihan on the right will always try to get forward and get balls in. So he does switch it up, Jim Gannon, the current manager. And if he plays 5 at the back, you'll see the wing backs getting forward. If he plays 4 at the back, then you tend to see it go through the middle a bit more, I would say.
Yeah.
So well, he has got that in him to switch it up. Yeah.
West Ham have had a similar thing this season, of course, where switching between 5 and 4 at the back. 5 is the preferred system, but with Arthur Masuaku, our sort of first choice left wing back, out for the foreseeable future, Mikel Antonio's in and around the team at the moment. Whether or not he'll risk him for an FA Cup game, he's just started edging him back in, is yet to be seen, which means it could be Sebastian Haller up front, and he scored the majority of his goals this season in the Cup, albeit against lower league opposition in the League Cup earlier on. So yeah, I think most West Ham fans just want to see David Moyes take the game seriously, get the business done, just put out a strongish team. We've got a big enough team now where we can put enough players out on the pitch who should have enough quality to win. Of course, Russ, we do really appreciate you joining us. Just before we let you go, what's your score prediction for the game Monday night? Stockport County away, West Ham United, 3rd round of the FA Cup.
I'm going to say. I don't like saying this. I'm going to say 2-1 to West Ham.
2-1 to West Ham.
I think you'll have too much for us. I think you will.
Yeah,
it's the gap of divisions. Yeah,
exactly. You'd hope we'd have too much, or we'd certainly hope that we'd have too much for you. But the last opposition view that came on and predicted a West Ham win, we ended up drawing 2-2 at relegation threatened Brighton. So you might be in for a bit of luck.
Well, it's a bit different, isn't it? Brighton from Stockport, but there you go.
a little bit. Russ, thanks so much for joining us. Russ Johnson there, the founder and host of the Scarf Bagara War Stockport County podcast, looking ahead to West Ham's trip to Stockport on Monday night in the 3rd round of the FA Cup. Russ, thanks so much. Stick with us because we've got Name That Game and the final wrap-up thoughts in the West Ham women's section next. So Russ Johnson there, the host and co-founder of the Scarf Bagara War podcast, Stockport County pod, chatting about the upcoming game Monday night at Edgeley Park, West Ham away to Stockport County, 3rd round of the FA Cup, 8 p.m. kickoff. Lads, before we get on to Name That Game, Tom, you're quizmaster this week, so I'll throw to you first. How are you feeling about the Stockport game? Russ there saying, John Rooney, Wayne's brother, is their star man, if you like, and that they're playing some decent enough stuff. They're 4th in the National League at the moment. It's always dangerous to come up against a team who's in form and used to winning games. You'd hope with the gulf in divisions between us and them that it wouldn't be too much of a problem. But how are you feeling going into the game? Are you nervous or confident that with a bit of a rest, Moyes is going to take it seriously and we're going to win it?
It's always a bit of banana skin, and I read up on their form, and I've been watching them a bit last few weeks, and yeah, and they look like they're a team in decent enough nick. They're right at the right end of the table in their own division, so we can't take it lightly. We all saw what happened with AFC Wimbledon, or boy, at 2 divisions above. We were in a similar position that season, flying under Pellegrini, had a deep squad at that point in everyone's eyes, and we got turned over pretty convincingly there. So we got to go there. We got to put in a professional, proper performance, because no one's going to roll over for us. The TV cameras are there. It's a big moment for the club. So always worried as a West Ham fan heading into the FA Cup, but it's one this year I'm a little bit more confident with. I think Moyes has that sort of drilled into the team that there's no easy game in professional football, and fingers crossed we'll go and do a job there, and look forward to seeing someone else in the FA Cup next round.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always games, the cup competition, especially when we go out, obviously, but it does make you realise, doesn't it, that the gulf between the Premier League and the League Two, for example, the difference is not actually all that, is it? It's fine margins. You're still talking ultra fit professionals in excellent shape, even as low down as the National League with Stockport, but they've been a Football League club for the majority of their existence. As I mentioned to Russ there, our record against them isn't good. They've actually got a winning record against us in the 14 games, I believe it is, that we've played them. And James, I am always surprised where people sort of assume you're just going to put your second string team out and they're going to be loads better than teams like Stockport, but you're coming up against, they're going to put their strongest 11 out, no doubt, against a team who are used to playing with each other. And you whack Robert Snodgrass in there and all of a sudden he doesn't quite look as good as we all thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a potential banana skin games like this, but as you said, the quality down there is still very, very good. So yeah, West Ham should be beating Stockport County in the cup, but it doesn't mean to say it's definitely going to happen. I think one thing that will count in our favour is the fact that they're going to have no fans there, because we saw when we got beat by Wimbledon in the cup. Their fans got them over the line. Their fans drove Wimbledon to beating us in the cup. Quite emphatically as well. And I just think, Stockport players are going to be up for it, but without their home crowd there, just takes a little bit of bite out of what would be a pretty big atmosphere there. And I think that'll work in our favour a little bit. But of course we've got enough to beat them. But on the day, it's a game of football. It's 90 minutes, and we have a history of messing these sort of matches up, don't we? Even against Stockport County back in 1996, as you've already mentioned, Wimbledon recently, Wrexham years and years and years ago. But this is a year that we should be looking to go far, given our well.
Don't. I've already let one cliche go with "this is a game of football." Don't come at me with "we should be going far in the cups."
Normally it's like, can we afford a cup run because we're going to be battling relegation?
No one ever says that.
Form hasn't been great. This, that, and the other. But this year, I want to see David Moyes go for it. I want to see him go for it.
We say that every year.
It probably means we're going to get beat 3-0 on Monday night. But,
Rooney loves a goal against
Rooney loves a goal. It doesn't matter which Rooney, does it?
No.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I do fancy us for the win, but I'd like to see us a nice professional performance. I'm coming out with the cliches, and I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Proper. Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
There's no way, by the way, that when in seasons past when we were rubbish, that you have ever said, "Oh, I don't know if we can afford a cup run." You every year would have out. We should. No,
you always
going for it. We should be winning it.
You always want to see a cup run. You always do. But in the back of my mind, in years gone past, it's probably a good thing that we're out the cup, because at least we can focus on staying in the Premier League, which is, as much as we all hate to admit it, that's the most important thing. That's what keeps the club running. It's the fact that we've got Premier League money and all the rest of it. So, but this year, absolutely no excuse at all. As you said at the beginning of the podcast, mate, we're massive, so we should be going for this. This should be our cup.
You've won me round there, James. But look, lads, with potential, we've got hope anyway that it feels like more of a training game at Stockport without the fans, as you mentioned there. The old magic of the FA Cup, James. I'm surprised you didn't throw that one in. Actually, that's an A1 cliche, isn't it?
I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Early rounds of the FA Cup. But look, one we'll say about a training game. Hopefully, it feels more like that, and that will play in to West Ham's hands. You'd think if it just comes down to technical ability rather than raw passion of the crowd. But one game that isn't going to be a training game is tonight's round of Name That Game. Tom Edwards is quizmaster, but I am in trouble. 15 points, stranded at the bottom of the league. Tom had a stonking victory over me last week, and he edged himself to within 1 point of James Jones at the top of the table. The scores are at the moment: James Jones 21 points, Tom Edwards 20, and me at the bottom with 15 points. Each week, the quizmaster, which is Tom this week, picks a West Ham match from history, collates 7 pieces of information about that game, and ultimately the 2 players, which tonight is me and James, get a point for each one of them they guess as the quizmaster reveals them. They are obscure fact, the scoreline only, an opposition goal scorer, a West Ham goal scorer, the stadium in which it was played, West Ham's opponent, and the season. It goes to a tie-break, which is the year the game took place if it's level after the first 7. Tom, over to you.
Yeah, I'm just going to get straight into this one, lads. And the obscure fact is the kickoff was actually delayed from this game by over an hour because there was a power cut at the stadium, which also affected the generators they had. So kickoff was delayed by an hour.
Right. I'm going to go. And I'm going to say, eek. Oh, no. 3-0.
To 0-3 or yeah, all right.
Yeah. No, it's just 3-0.
2 ways. Yeah.
Okay.
Give opposition scorer, Jonesy.
None.
Correct.
What's the alternate info for that if there's none? You're having a laugh.
Okay, wait. I can give him an alternate one, but at the end, after you get.
Okay. So West Ham goal scorer Marko Arnautovic.
That is correct. And now, Jonesy, I can give you one. The other 2 goal scorers in the game for West Ham were Noble and Diafra Sakho. Noble scored from a penalty. Who won that penalty?
Belter.
Is it Manuel Lanzini?
It is, and I think that's the only time a player's been banned retrospectively for diving in the Premier League.
Okay, so
stadium for Will.
The Britannia.
Yeah.
Go back. Yeah. Will you be all right with opponent, James?
Is it the Britannia? Yeah. Or is it Bet 365? I don't know. I'll let
behave.
I'm not sure, but it's Stoke City.
That is correct. And Will for the season to take all the points, I believe.
This is where I always stuff up on the seasons. The season I believe was 2017-18.
That is correct.
That
is correct. Yeah, it happened in 16th of December 2017, so it was that season, and it was Moyes, Arnautovic back at the 365 for Jonesy, and yeah, it was a good day. I was up there, and I just remember being ushered out the back and everyone having cigs out the back because they couldn't see anything in the bloody concourse. It was a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, mate, I was at that one as well, and waiting. We got locked out before, wasn't it? You got to the ground, and the turnstiles were affected by the power thing, weren't they? So we were just penned into the away end, but outside the stadium, it was bitter cold, wasn't it? For literally an hour, you couldn't go anywhere or get back in. But that was Arnautovic proper giving it big ones to the Stoke fans, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's when he came off and he walked down. He got taken off in about the 75th, and he walked down all the side, taking his shirt off, doing the irons the whole walk down, and really getting into Hughes. And after that, he was literally a cult. After that was the game which sort of made him. And I thought that's why I do it, because the rumours circulating. So I thought I'd get that one going.
That was a belter. That I'll take that. I needed that win there. So that's 4-2 to me, which puts me on 19 points. James still out in front on 22, but Tom remains on 20 as he was the quiz master. So I've pulled a couple back. I needed a big one there,
20,
but that was
23, mate. I'm not 20, Tom. I'm 23.
Oh, excuse me.
Get it right, mate.
Yeah.
23 for
Quick
James
maths.
Jones. 23 for James Jones, 20 for Tom Edwards, and me on 19 points. So I'm back in it. I'm thrilled with that. But that game, Tom, you mentioned it there, Marko Arnautovic, and how badly he was giving it to the Stoke fans. That is the game I always think back to and thought back to when he left us. And excuse my language on this one, but that class bit of shithousery from him when he then did it to us and everyone was well surprised. I was like, what did you expect? I always think back to that game and he was absolutely loving it, giving it to the Stoke fans, isn't he? So yeah, but I think that for me is
how much you'd hate it.
Exactly. But that for me is what football should all be about, which is also why I wouldn't really mind him back at the London Stadium if he does come in January. But that is nearly it. Stay with us because we've got the last segment of the show. It's the West Ham women with sports journalist and WSL expert Isabel Barker from The Sun next. So that was Name That Game here on the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, Tom Edwards and James Jones. I'm delighted to say for the last segment of the show, we are joined by friend of the podcast is how we have to introduce her now, sports journalist, WSL expert from The Sun, Isabel Barker's joining us for the first day. You're our first guest of 2021, Isabel. So it's brilliant to have you back. No game for West Ham's women for a while, still 10th in the WSL, 5 points above Bristol City, who are bottom. But quite a lot has happened since we last spoke. We had your colleague Sandra Brobby on just before Christmas in our last show before Christmas, talking about who West Ham might be appointing as their new manager. And mere hours after the podcast went live, the club made an appointment. Ollie Holder, somewhat a little known, I would say, New Zealand born. What can you tell us? Well, first of all, Happy New Year. How are you? And then what can you tell us about West Ham Women's new manager?
Well, it's an honour to be the first guest. And I actually think it was a really ambitious appointment. I would have possibly, obviously there was huge speculation that would be Wales's manager, Jane Ludlow, and that would have been a huge appointment as manager. But I actually think Ollie Harder's record just speaks for himself, really. It was obviously just over a month after Matt's departure. So the club was kind of crying out for it. And Jack Sullivan actually said that what stood out about Ollie was that his style, his kind of attention to detail, and his achievements in the women's game, but also the men's game as well, which I think is really good. You know, he was recently an assistant coach at Sandnes Ulf. Sorry, any Norwegian West Ham fans if I pronounced it terribly. They were sort of like a second division men's side in Norway. So, you know, that's quite a big role in itself, considering if you think of the comparisons in the UK. He's got international experience as well. He was under 23's assistant coach. So, you know, that's a huge job, and that would be over here as well. He speaks 3 languages. So as I think I've hammered on about so much on this podcast, that's such a diverse team at West Ham. So it's brilliant that he can speak 3 languages, that we have to tap into, you know, a lot of the players. I'm not sure what the languages are, but, you know, he'll be able to tap into a lot of the players because West Ham, as I've said, has the most nationalities in the team. He signed a 2-year contract. And yeah, Jack Sullivan's got huge backing from Jack Sullivan. You know, he's got lots of new ideas, and I think he's going to be a really positive person to progress the team further, because where they are sitting in the league just is a really poor reflection of the funding, the players, and so hopefully he'll just be a breath of fresh air, really.
Well, I know James has got a couple of questions for you as well, Isabel, but just quickly on that, you mentioned there about Jane Ludlow, and that was quite an exciting potential appointment when that came up at first. You know, an impressive CV, various different high-level roles within the women's game. Do you, obviously West Ham have tried to sort of put a positive spin on it. Jack Sullivan said, you know, we had a huge number of incredibly strong candidates, but Ollie stood out predominantly due to his progressive coaching style, as you mentioned. Is he a better choice than Jane? or not?
No, no, I would say no, because she's played in the women's game and the players love her. I kind of hate using the word feisty when it comes to women, but she's firm. She would
Authoritative.
Clamp down hard on the players, and she would instantly have that respect walking in there, and a really impressive CV. Players love her, but they also really respect her, like Casey Stoney at Man United. But the one thing I just think West Ham is very unique, like I keep saying about all the different players. So I think an overseas manager, I mean, obviously Wales counts, but kind of more European manager, actually would suit the players more at West Ham. Jane Ludlow would have been the ideal candidate. She's just because of her CV. But I do think Ollie will be great for kind of uniting the players and understanding them all.
Isabel, I mean, he's clearly very, very experienced, as we've just established. And, as you've already mentioned, speaks 3 languages. So, he kind of fits that bill nicely, given the amount of nationalities in the squad. But do you think that potentially, and this is just because I don't really know what Norwegian women's football is like in terms of the level of standard, but is it a big jump in terms of standard between Norwegian women's football and the WSL?
They're very different, definitely, but Norway produces some of the best women's footballers in the world, so they're definitely doing something right over there, like Ada Hegerberg, who was Lyon's top scorer. She was the first woman to get a Ballon d'Or. So
the Ballon d'Or, yeah.
So the female players that are coming out of Norway are amazing, of the highest standards. So obviously they've got a really brilliant football culture surrounding the women's game. They really respect it, and hopefully he's kind of immersed himself in that and really, really respects women's football and knows the players and will get on with them really well.
Isabel, he was appointed just before Christmas, so he's obviously had a few weeks now to work with the squad, and he's by the looks of it, we've got quite a tough run coming up now. So what will he be looking to take out of these few games? Because it's Man City away next, then Durham in the Cup, and then the derby against Tottenham at home, and then after that it's Arsenal away. So what is he going to look to take out of these games? Is it points, or is it just performances out of some of his top players?
Well, I think firstly what he needs to do is he needs to shore up West Ham's defending, because obviously they had the game postponed, and then before that it was a 4-0 win over Bristol. But Bristol had, I think, a goal chalked off for offside and then 2 really close chances. Then before that it was 3 goals shipped with Chelsea. So shoring up that defence, because having a good defence, as we know, is equally as good to having that amazing attacking players that West Ham has. But he's got to really shore up that defending and create some organisation, because it looks really scrappy, really leaky, and kind of a bit like, I don't know, embarrassing to watch at times, because the front players are doing so well and there's so many gaps between the back players, and from clumsy set pieces they're letting in goals, and they were really lucky that they didn't let in goals against Bristol City. But yeah, they need to get points, because 3rd season in the WSL, as I keep saying, a lot of funding, really high profile signings like Rachel Daly, who has been amazing recently. She was amazing against Bristol City, a really good signing. So yeah, he's got to get some more points, because otherwise it's such a poor reflection of a club that is putting a lot into their women's side.
Just quickly, is there any news on Rachel Daly and Emily Van Egmond and their departures? Or
I believe Rachel Daly was she a season-long loan, or was she one of the short-term loans?
I think one of the deals, I think her deal may have been short-term till January. We'll double check that. But before while we're having a look into that one, Tom's mentioned there, time that Ollie might have had with his squad, but obviously they were given, there was a women's football had a Christmas break or a winter break anyway. Several members of the squad had that, all the squad, had that time off. Several members of the WSL went away abroad or just had time with their families, which segues me nicely into my next question. Alicia Lehmann, very high profile West Ham star, was in a little bit of hot water right towards the beginning, just before Christmas was cancelled by the Merchant of Doom, Boris Johnson. Alicia was one of several WSL stars who were pictured overseas. There was some Arsenal players involved as well, a Leicester star, I believe. But Alicia went to the Maldives with her partner Ramona Bachmann, who plays for PSG. Carried on. A few stories from different sources went live just before Christmas. She carried on posting stuff. West Ham weren't willing to sort of put anything on record or come out, and weren't particularly hard on her, unlike they were with Manuel Lanzini and some of the men's stars. So what did you make of that situation? Because it seemed at first like she'd broken COVID guidelines by travelling overseas for a purpose that wasn't work, and yet and nothing seemed to come of it really. And then you had all the stuff in the men's game, and there was a bit of a different tone around that, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't really want to defend the players that do that at all. I think possibly maybe she argued there was a business element to the trip. I've not heard that she has. Possibly she did with the club, because she's obviously got a lot of sponsorships, and maybe she was even sponsored by this Maldives resort or something to go there. And you know how many followers she's got on Instagram, TikTok, so anything she does doesn't go unnoted. So possibly there was a business element there. But the only thing I could argue is that a lot of these women's players they Alicia Lehmann's probably an exemption, but they don't have all the money to kind of ship their families over to live with them and live with big mansions. And the player welfare has been quite a big concern for the women this season. They've been miserable not seeing their families or their partners. And she wasn't at the training ground in the lead up to when she flew out, and she also only came on for a little bit against Bristol. So maybe she's been it hasn't been a great season for her anyway, so maybe she had a slight knock or something, and maybe she kind of just got out a bit early, and possibly it was, like she said, when London was in tier 3, and maybe she could kind of leave training a bit early. But it's a bit dubious. I don't want to defend her too much, but like we were saying, I don't think she really cared that much, because if people are huge fans of her, and she was on TikTok posting on Instagram, so I don't know if she really cared that much, to be honest. But she's back, and she's been in training, but I think she's still got a slight knock, so I'm not sure we'd see her for the full 90 minutes if the game with Man City goes ahead.
Yeah, it didn't seem too phased by the story. Some of those pictures on her Instagram and appeared to have looked very nice indeed, that holiday in the Maldives and that little stilted villa in the middle of the sea.
I had to unfollow her because I was too jealous. Honestly, I unfollowed. I couldn't bear it.
James, do you reckon, I mean, we've got the deal with Betway this season for the charity bets. Do you reckon we could get someone, as Isabel mentioned there, do you reckon we could get the Maldives to sponsor us to go out and do a We Are West Ham podcast from a villa in the Indian Ocean?
Actually, why not? We might as well send a few emails out.
Can I come?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You got a card for Christmas, Isabel.
Yeah, I suppose you did get a card and a bottle of wine, so I mean, you're pushing your luck a little bit.
What do you want?
You're pushing your luck. I mean, but if not, we could always try, I don't know, Bognor or somewhere a little bit less glamorous.
The next best thing.
Still all right in the summer months, isn't it? Really, so.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely, Isabel. Look, the next game, Tom. I think you can clear up that Rachel Daly situation for us, yeah.
Yes, so she was initially joined on a temporary loan until the end of the year, per the club website, and as of yet, we haven't heard any news on being extended. But by the looks of it, I think she's quite keen to join back with us Houston Dash, I believe.
So that, when you say end of the year, that was end of calendar year, so 2020.
End of January, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right, okay. Well, obviously that will be. We've mentioned it already. Fingers crossed that we managed to hold on to Rachel, who's played well this season. Isabel, before we let you go, the next game, I mean, what a minger of a game, to put not to put too fine of a point on it. That is a minging game of football. Next up, Manchester City away, Saturday the 9th of January, 12:30 kickoff this Saturday. Coming. I mean, we had, when we spoke to Ella German earlier in the season before the Arsenal game, she tried to be pragmatic about West Ham's chances and said we're only going to lose 4-1. Can you see anything other than a West Ham hiding for Ollie's first game in charge?
Potentially, because Man City have just been hit with 4 COVID cases in their first team. So I don't know who the players are, but if there was a time to play Man City, maybe they're feeling still fatigued and they've got those 4 players out. Though I do think Gareth Taylor's really got them playing now, because they had a lot of new signings. Lucy Bronze, I'm sure the fans know her from England. So yeah, but I think if there was a time to play them, it would be now. And also I feel like they'll just be refreshed from having a new manager. We see a lot of teams that just after the appointment of a new manager, they pick up a win. So I think if there was a time to play it, it would be now. Maybe it'd be close, 3-2 to City.
3-2 to City. I like that optimism from you there. Isabel, what a wonderful first guest of 2021 you were for the We Are West Ham podcast. Thanks so much for everything you did for us last year. We hope to speak to you loads more this year, this season, all of that stuff. And
next
James...
Fulham game when we beat you.
Absolutely, yeah. And James will be on to you if we hear back about the villa in the Maldives or the caravan down at Bognor. Either way, we'll be on to you soon. Thanks so much for coming on, and stay with us because we've got the Fantasy Premier League update next. So Isabel Barker there saying it's the best time for the West Ham women to play Manchester City, but still predicting a City victory. Fingers crossed that Ollie Harder can get off to a good start in his first game in charge of the women's team. But that is it for the show, lads. The first one of 2021. The box is ticked for that one. It's out the way. As always, we wrap up with a brief update on the We Are West Ham podcast Fantasy Premier League. I'm not going to dwell on it this week too much, James, because I know it's going to break your heart. I got 87 points last week by accident because I basically just thought I'm not going to keep up with it over Christmas. So just left my team as it was, left the captain's armband on Kevin De Bruyne, which I certainly wouldn't have done if I'd have been concentrating. He bagged a massive haul against Chelsea at home. Also left Cresswell in there, got an assist. Soucek, of course, who's a stalwart in my team, week in, week out. So that leaves me on 1,024 points. You're on 882. You moved bottom of our little mini league between the three of us because Tom got 67 to your 52 and moved himself 14 points clear of you on 896. Do you want to do the update on the overall West Ham League, James, or do you just want to move on as quickly as possible with you in silence?
Yeah, no, I can do that, mate. I will also point out that you got 87 by accident. I mean, I got 52 by accident, but purely because I meant to get more.
Yeah,
I accidentally got less than I meant to. So yeah, we both had accidents this week, but for very different reasons. But the We Are West Ham podcast league for the listeners is picking up a bit of pace. Rudy Eagling, I think he's been a leader for most of the season.
Bossing it.
He's absolutely running away with it at the moment. 1,121 points, 72 points last week. Probably also accident because he meant to get more. Jeremy Pike second with 83 points last week, so he's close on his tail with 1,093. And it's big capital letters. I can't not read this out because it's staring me square in the face. Will desperately wants me to read this bit out. Will Pugh is coming. It says it's coming. He's behind Rudy Eagling, on his toes. 19th in the whole league. Not too bad.
That's pretty good, isn't it? Out of four,
given there's about 450, 500 people in it. So yeah, it's not bad going, mate. I'll give you that. Tom, you're 239th, and so yes, it's doing pretty well at the moment. Yeah, doing pretty well.
There is one more thing on there, mate. It's not very clear on my screen. You can read it out.
Oh yeah, there it is. I'm 207. Yeah, so it's doing pretty well. It's going really well. I'm 267th. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. Another cliche there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You are the walking cliche, aren't you? But look, no Fantasy Premier League next week. It's the FA Cup, of course. Stockport County coming up. A big game, that is. I like what James's sentiments are, even though he did sound like the most vanilla version of Jermaine Genius on Match of the Day too, with his football cliches ahead of Stockport. It is a huge game for West Ham, and it would be lovely to have a cup run just in time for when fans are allowed back in May. Yeah, wishful thinking, I think, on that one. Don't forget our New Year giveaway exclusively for listeners to the We Are West Ham podcast. So it won't be going anywhere on social media. Remember the instructions from earlier for your chance to win a free West Ham shirt from this season, whichever one you like, home, away, or third kit, all you have to do is leave us a 5-star review on the platform of your choice, either iTunes or YouTube. Just 5 stars, write some nice words and take a screen grab of that. Send the screen grab to wearewesthampod@gmail.com with your name and address and all that sort of stuff. And as soon as the review flashes up on either iTunes or YouTube, we'll pick put all the names of eligible entrants into a hat, and we will pick a winner before next week's show. The Sunday night we're closing it, so get it in by midnight on Sunday, and we'll make the pick on the Monday and announce it on next week's podcast. So like I say, this is an exclusive competition just for guys who listen to the podcast rather than anything on social media. However, do follow us on social media. On Twitter, we're at @weare_West Ham to get involved in all of the polls, the Twitter polls, and just general updates on what me and the lads are up to. We're on Instagram as well and YouTube. Scroll down to the description of this podcast for a link to our YouTube channel, and you can watch us as well as listen to us. Jonesy, you're going to do a bit of work on the YouTube in the coming weeks, aren't you, to make it a bit more jazzy?
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, we're gonna start releasing our interviews with ex-West Ham players as sort of just mini sort of standalone episodes, sort of 10-15 minute bite-sized episodes, just so people can go back and listen to some of the great interviews you did, particularly in 2020. The likes of Craig Forrest, Tony Carr on several occasions, Tony Cottee, Tony Gale, Frank McAvenny. I mean, so many. So we're going to, in the coming weeks and months, keep an eye on those. We'll tweak them out as well, but keep an eye on those because they're well worth a listen back or watch back on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And just quickly, I mentioned the Twitter polls there. This week's one, which we did miss out during the show, was just a simple, would you be happy if West Ham re-signed Marko Arnautovic this month? Right down the middle, the closest one we've had for ages. 53% of people saying yes, 47% of people saying no. Hundreds voted in that, and you could be one of those if you don't already follow us on Twitter. But that is it for this week. West Ham avoided a sticky situation at the Toffees and started 2021 in emphatic fashion thanks to Tomas Soucek and his love of potato salad. It's Stockport County up next in the FA Cup, and not to sound too much like cliche lover James Jones, could this be West Ham's year? And we really should be going for it. Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for everything last year. We hope you'll stick with us in 2021. Keep the faith, up the hammers, and we'll see you next week.